Hey guys, I'm Chad Hoover. Welcome to today's video where I'm going to show you how to set up a depth finder for kayak fishing that's also portable. Fish on! That's a toad, brother. Golly! All right guys, so before we jump into today's video, these videos wouldn't be possible without the amazing support of my amazing sponsors. And this video in particular is brought to you by the folks from Ledlenser. Guys, I have some aggressive adventures. I spent some time in some remote locations. So I need lighting for getting ready before daylight and carrying my ventures late into the night. And that's why I choose the Ledlenser line of products to light the way for all of my adventures. And I think you should do the same thing. Listen, if you need a reliable, bulletproof lighting that's going to be there when you need it, be sure to check out the folks from Ledlenser. All right guys, to set up this portable depth finder setup, I'm basically using three products. I'm using the Hook 2 Reveal from Lowrance, which we'll talk a little bit about in this video, but this video is primarily about how to set it up. I am using a YakAttack depth finder mount. I'm using a YakAttack switch arm, and then I'm also using the YakAttack CellBlok. And the reason that I chose these products for this boat is because I'm not 100% sure where I want to put the depth finder yet, but more importantly, I need a depth finder setup that's portable since I change kayaks. I fly to a lot of destinations, and a lot like me, a lot of you guys actually have multiple kayaks, or if you get a new kayak, you don't want to have everything, tied to that kayak permanently. I just needed a portable depth finder to use both with kayaks, with inflatables, and I decided to set this up for my new Bonafide P127. And so there's a couple things that had to come into play. One, I needed to make sure that the transducer arm was something that I could move myself from the seated position. I also needed to make sure that the entire depth finder apparatus was out of the way of the pedal drive system, and I needed to make sure that I could reach the keys and make the adjustments to the depth finder both from the seated position and while I'm standing, because I plan on using this depth finder to pinpoint fish in deeper water. So let me walk you through the setup and then show you some of the reasons why I chose to put the things where I did by hopping in the seat, because really that's what it boils down to. So first and foremost, I knew I wanted to use the CellBlok from YakAttack because I wanted to be able to have the battery to where I didn't have to run the wires into my hull, and I wanted to make it easy to manage the transducer cords. For whatever reason, depth finder manufacturers have still not caught up with the fact that we're kayak fishermen and we don't need 75 feet of transducer cord. So YakAttack come up with a really cool solution for managing that. I also wanted to use a depth finder that was a little bit more budget friendly. I know a lot of people see me using HDS Live, things like that, and they're like, dude, I can't afford that depth finder. I want you to show me a depth finder that I can actually afford. So I picked up this Hook 2 Reveal. That's the split shot, which is basically just two functions. I didn't go with the side scan and the triple shot version because I figured I didn't want to bog the processor down even more in this lower end unit. And I already have a great side scan unit. So I think this unit is going to both complement the system that I already have, which we'll talk about in a different video, but it'll also be a great standalone price point unit that I think is going to appeal to a lot of anglers. I knew I was going to be limited for rail space and I wanted some additional functionality. So one of the choices that I had to make right out of the gate was, do I mount my switchblade mount on top of the CellBlok, or do I mount it separately on the track? Now, the YakAttack switchblade comes with the option to do both. And if you see this extension I'm holding in my hand right here, this extension actually goes in the middle right here. So if you do decide to mount this on top of your CellBlok, it gives you the additional length to get the depth finder transducer down into the water. I chose to mount it onto the track, and this boat has a relatively low freeboard, so I didn't need this additional section. I'm not going to bore you with how to take it out, but it's pretty much a simple Allen screw. You slide in there and you loosen it up. The actual product itself captures the nut on the inside, so you don't have to have a second wrench. You take an Allen wrench, you take the screw out, you take this segment out, you put it back together, you tighten it back up, and you basically shorten your transducer arm. A couple of the things that I had to take into account is I needed it to be as deep as it needed to be to get a good signal, but I didn't want it to be deeper than it needed to be, so it stuck down below the boat to create too much drag and to catch on vegetation, timber and things like that when I'm fishing. And I needed to be able to operate it from the seat of my boat. So that's the reason that I set this unit up to where I have the mount in two different places. I also had the option of mounting a track from YakAttack on top of my CellBlok, putting my depth finder mount on top of there, but I wanted it to be a little bit lower, so when I'm sidearm casting and skipping under docks and things like that, it was lower profile and it was out of my way. So for a number of reasons, specifically for this boat and the couple that I just mentioned, I didn't want my unit to be super tall. So what I chose to do is actually mount a YakAttack lock and load directly to the switchblade mount, put it behind the CellBlok, and then basically lower my profile. So I'm going to hop in the boat real quick and show you guys exactly how this whole setup works. So what's really cool about this is sitting in the seated position of my kayak, I've got a couple of options. I can take the depth finder and bring it back closer to me if I'm going to be doing a lot of settings, if I'm setting up a chart, a waypoint, saving something, or I can pop it back up like this if I just need to glance at it and I just need to reach up and make a quick setting adjustment, drop in a waypoint or something like that. So you can leave these loose like I just did, where you have the ability to grab it and articulate it, and it's going to be plenty strong enough to hold it in place, especially since I got it propped up here. Or you can just tighten down your knob there, and then that thing's nice and snug and locked in place. The arm from YakAttack actually mounts into the back of this unit nice and clean. It's just a squeeze clamp. You slide it in there and it locks in place. So it actually provides enough resistance that once I tighten this arm down, when I get ready to stand up and fish, and you just pop up like this, and you want to be able to look down at your depth finder, you simply reach down and pop the head down like that, and you can see it. Or if you want to make it more streamlined, you just pop the lock and load up and turn it, and now it's right in line with what you're looking at. So it gives me a lot of flexibility and a lot of options when it comes to how I orient my graph. Now, this will work with a 7. This will work with an HDS system. This will pretty much work with any system out there. And I got to be honest with you guys, I'm not sure that I might not go to this system for everything that I do. Use the smaller Dakota Lithium to run all of my boat electronics, and then run my wiring to my bigger Dakota Lithium from HDS Live. One of the things that I see anglers do all the time is try to buy the biggest depth finder that they possibly can. And another solution that I'm looking at to help folks that can't afford those bigger units is, instead of buying a 12-inch unit, if you buy a 5-inch unit and a 7-inch unit and use those together, you're going to get the same amount of usable screen. You're going to have 2 separate processors, so while you're running DSI on one, you can use standard transducer on the other, or vice versa. So I am going to be helping you guys dial in the best possible solution, the best bang for the buck, and not exactly what the depth finder company want us to tell you, but exactly where you can get your best bang for the buck and what I think is going to work the best for kayak fishing. So guys, in a nutshell, the reason that I went with the CellBlok is I wanted to put a 10 amp hour Dakota Lithium battery in here. Makes it nice and easy. And guys, I would sit here and spend a lot of time showing you how I routed the wiring, but it's pretty straightforward. I plugged it into the unit. I routed the power wire into the slot on the CellBlok. This CellBlok is so clean and so easy to put together. I would be insulting your intelligence if I showed you how to put it together. So I'm just going to tell you, follow the 5 steps in the instructions. It all goes together like easier than Lego blocks. And then all I did is take my transducer cord, I zip tied it in the little slots that it was provided, ran the cord up, and then I just wrapped it around the provided little bracket right there on the side of the CellBlok. The only thing that I did different than I would say most people do is I did a figure 8 instead of just wrapping it around and around, because I think it helped tighten that cord up a little bit, bunch it up. I could come back and put a zip tie around it if I wanted to. I'll show you guys a pro tip on how to tie up your electronics if you hang out to the end of the video for me, and especially if you're not a big fan of these sharp edges and line grabbers that are left on these zip ties. Again, one of the things that I mentioned that I had to have is the ability to by hand. So again, even if I'm in the seated position, I can just reach forward and I can fold my transducer arm up. It's out of the way, it's clean. You can loosen these screws up right here and rotate it to where it's parallel with the boat, so you don't even have to take it off if you don't want to. And I'm gonna even experiment with putting a couple of thumb knobs on here where I don't have to have an Allen wrench to tighten that up. But again, the ability to pop that thing down just like so. It's nice and in line with my boat. The transducer is easy to get to. If I bang into something or if I bump into something, back into it, and I happen to knock my transducer down like so, and I know immediately that my screen orientation's off, the cool thing about this too is I can pop this right back up. I can move that arm, I can line it up, get it where it needs to go, and then pop it right back down. Now, one thing that I do recommend is I do recommend leaving this just tight enough that when you push it, it'll stay with water pressure. I don't recommend making this arm or making this arm so tight that the unit won't move. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One, I like to get by docks and change my angle and shoot my depth finder up underneath it. But more importantly, if you bump into something, you don't want it so rigid that this won't move, and so that it transfers all the pressure to your switchblade arm. So leave that a little bit flexible. Make sure that it's parallel with the deck. You can eyeball it, make that quick adjustment. Go back to fishing. It's clean, it's out of the way. And more importantly, and one of the biggest reasons that I set this system up the way that I did is I wanted a depth finder unit that was portable. So all you have to do with your CellBlok is simply loosen these knobs up. And I like to loosen them all the way up so I don't have to fight with the track to get them out. Once you loosen these dudes up right here, the rest is pretty straightforward. All you do is pop that head unit off, loosen up your lock and load system, slide this forward and turn it. As you slide it, pop the transducer arm off itself, and everything, whoops, got a little, caught it on that little nut right there. And then the whole system is portable. You put that in your back seat, throw that in your gear bag, check it in your luggage, and you are ready to move this from kayak to kayak. And more importantly, you're also not stuck with which side you want your depth finder on. If I have a situation where I want to move the depth finder to the other side, if I want to use this to power my navigation lights, if I want to use it to power my cameras, it really does provide me a versatile power solution. This little Hook 5 reveal unit has really impressed me with its capabilities, especially for $299. And so guys, you can't go wrong with this setup. And as promised, since you hung out to the end of the video, don't go anywhere. I'm going to show you a pro tip on how to tie your wiring up so you don't scratch your arm or catch your fishing line on zip ties. And to quantify how I know how to do this, a lot of people don't realize I spent 20 years in the Navy, and about half of that as an aviation electronics technician. So I'm going to show you a little trick that we use in the military, or actually in aviation in general. So this stuff right here is called lacing tape, okay? And it's basically a wax-coated flat webbing. Think of it as dental floss on steroids. In fact, if you can't find lacing tape, you can actually just use dental floss to do exactly what I'm talking about here. So once you've decided where you want your wiring, in fact, you can use this in place of zip ties. You can use it in places like this where you want to get an additional tie point. And I'm a big fan of having all my wiring clean. So once you know how much articulation you want out of your head, and you give yourself enough wiring, and once you've got everything kind of dialed in to where you want it, you can come in and lace your line. Now, here's the easiest way to learn how to do this. Just basically double your line up. You're going to stick your fingers in, and you're going to make a double overhand loop like that. Think about it as Mickey Mouse ears when you're done, okay? Take those two loops and fold them together. That is going to be the loop that is the key to this whole thing. So you're going to take this loop and you're going to pass it around the bundle of wiring that you want to tie down, maintaining the integrity of the loop. Now, what I'm going to do is come up here tight, and then I'll do one on the other end. You could go to the middle, but ideally when you want a tie point, what you do is you then take those two tag ends and go back through that loop just like so. Once you get that done, simply pull that loop down to make what's now a slip knot. Then you're just going to slide this down right to the wiring where you want it tied, and you just kind of work it back and forth, and that wax holds it in place. Now, to finish this knot, you take your two tag ends and you just open that knot up, and then I just like to do a double overhand just like so. And from there, you're just going to take your scissors, your knife, your line cutters, or whatever, and trim that off, and you've got a nice, clean, easy tie point. And more importantly, that's not going to catch on your line, and you're not going to have these sharp edges like you have on zip ties. So there's a little pro tip for you guys. This is a real quick and easy and inexpensive way for you to be able to see what's going on below the surface. I know a lot of people avoid depth finders because they think they got to have an HDS unit. They think they got to have live sight, live scope, super scan, something that's going to catch the fish for you. Truly what you need, water temperature and depth. All that other stuff is gravy. It's nice to have. It takes it to the next level. But if you're a recreational fisherman that's only getting out a few times a week, or a few times a month, or a couple times and you still want a really good depth finder setup. The Hook 2 reveal is even a little bit higher than you have to go. I went with the split shot. Like I said, I saved $100 over the triple shot because I already have a structure scan depth finder. If you want everything in one unit, that series and the TI series are great. But again, I'll do you guys some videos on all of these units going down the road. But I wanted to start with the basic setup. This is about the most basic, easy, inexpensive setup that you can use. I'll put the link in the description box to all of the products that I used to put this together. I'll even try to find you guys a link to some lacing tape. You can usually buy that at most electronics places, but that's a really clean, easy way, effective way to set up your depth finder. And to be honest with you guys, I've been using this thing now for 2 days, and I haven't seen where I was limited in a lot of ways. Now, I don't have the super high-end functionality of structure scan, but I've been able to find cover, I've been able to find structure, I've been able to find fish. And so it's pretty much done what I needed it to do, and I'm really excited and happy with the setup. So if you're looking for a clean, easy way to set up a depth finder. Oh, and one more thing. If you say to yourself, dude, my kayak ain't got no tracks like that, you can actually just mount 2 YakAttack gear tracks where you need them, or 1 long track where you need it, on pretty much any kayak out there. So you don't even have to have tracks installed on your boat. Again, this is a simple, clean, easy way to mount your depth finder. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, if you found it useful, if you got some value from it, share it with your friends. Leave a comment in the comment section. Hit that thumbs up. It takes a little bit of effort on your part. It means a whole lot to me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.